Well, congratulations, Crusaders, Super Rugby Aotearoa champions. They've only lost the one game. The competition is not over. There's still one round to play, but with a week to spare, the Crusaders have wrapped things up with a 32-22 win over the Highlanders. Now, the Highlanders did give them a bit of a battle. The Crusaders didn't find the lead until, I think, around about the hour mark. But, yeah, top quality game. Very, very, just very intense. I guess traditional rivals, the Highlanders and the Crusaders, and yeah, the Highlanders didn't have a lot to play for other than to play spoiler, and boy were they trying. I think everyone in New Zealand, apart from Crusaders fans, was rooting them on, but not to be. And the Crusaders are just such a class outfit, man. They continue to be just very, very, very good, even when they're not at their best. They are still better than most. That's just how they roll. I should say the weather down there in Christchurch looked impeccable. Beautiful sunny day. And the crowd in the stand, it looked like a sellout crowd. I think 17,500. I think it seats about 18,000. So pretty much a sellout. Proper quality viewing. From a fan's point of view, just sitting down to watch that game, how good did that look on the telly? Absolutely phenomenal. So kudos to all the people who got out there, and to the weather gods for putting on such a beautiful day for what was essentially for the Crusaders the first chance final. They still would have had a second chance one if they'd needed it, but they didn't end up needing it. So yeah. That being said, it didn't start all their way. Shannon Frizzell had a try about 60 seconds on the clock. I was going to say 60 minutes. 60 seconds, all from turnover ball. A couple of phase later, boom, Frizzell is over for a try. You wanted the Highlanders at least. I mean, I was live streaming the game, and yeah, pretty much everybody in the chat was looking for the Highlanders to cause an upset, if for no other reason to set up a final like next week at Eden Park. But yeah, and you think, man, the Highlanders could certainly use a bit of a points advantage to start with, and they got it. They were 7-0 up early, and a few lost chances. While they had all this pressure on early, 6 minutes, they went within about a metre of the Crusaders' line, but the Crusaders scrambled D, managed to hold. I mean, the game was pretty close. I still think the Crusaders probably would have won it even if they'd scored there, but that's essentially very close to 7 points that went down the drain, and they missed a penalty later on as well. So, yeah, there were a few points left out there for the Highlanders. I mean, you could probably say the same is true of the Crusaders, but yeah, it was a good bit of D, I guess, if you're thinking about from a Crusaders point of view, to make sure you stifled that Highlanders effort, and then their team went on the front foot because Morgan got a try. I think he continues to be the best first five in the country, doesn't he? He's pretty bloody good. Didn't have his best night with the boot last week, but he was pretty sharp tonight. He got a try. It was a right wing line break from Reese. Pass, and boom. Crusaders were over to make it 7-0, seemingly out of nowhere. And then they almost, I mean, if you're looking at lost opportunities, they had a big line break from the restart, the Crusaders. And yeah, it was probably fortunate that the Highlanders' defence held in that moment because they were looking a bit shell shocked. 17 minutes, the Highlanders. It was a kind of a weird moment. They got a penalty, and Aaron Smith just decided out of nowhere. Remember, we're 17 minutes into a game, which is tied up on the scoreboard, so it's you're not losing, and it's within the first 20 minutes. He taps it, and then just kicks it. He goes like 2 steps forward, kicks it, and it clean goes out on the full. But honestly, if you're going to beat the Crusaders down in Christchurch, you need to be nearly flawless, because very rarely will the Crusaders, be an error-ridden team that's just going to give you chances. And admittedly, if you look at some of the numbers, which I'll tell you a bit later, they did give the Highlanders some chances, but they don't give you enough. You can't be giving them like opportunities back. You need to take the ones you've been given by the Crusaders, which will be few, and then give them virtually nothing. But that was just kind of a silly mistake. It's like he seemed to be in that mode, like, because he is kind of the star of that team. I mean, Shannon Frizzell would have things to say about that as well, but it's not a team absolutely stacked with All Blacks, and he is world class at a team which is not stacked with world class players. They're still a good team, but you felt like he was in that moment thinking, I've got to do something, like I've got to do this all by myself, and he tried something and it failed. Still, I'm not saying he did a bad game, but it's just a cool head, I think, was probably called for there because it wasn't in a desperation situation. Then they had a penalty a couple minutes later, so it didn't actually make that much difference. It was just kind of a mindset thing. But a couple minutes later, they took a shot at goal, and it went off the post, like I mentioned. They did kick one on 21 minutes to put themselves 10-7 in front. That's the Highlanders. And then on 24 minutes, Nareki, who I've been calling for to start for ages because he looks so good every time he plays, he gets an intercept pass from Sam Whitelock well inside his own half. And he just tears for the Crusaders try line. Now, Sevu Reece is hot on his heels. And go watch the highlights. They'll be on the All Blacks YouTube channel if you haven't seen it. Sevu Reece seems to be running him down fairly comfortably to the point where he's got no chance. But I don't know. Maybe Reece gasses out a little bit. Maybe Nadeki's just got a slower acceleration time, but their top speed is the same. Because he couldn't quite catch him, and Nadeki ran a smart enough line to stay away from Reece. So it was a big play there, worth a lot, and hell of a conversion as well from the corner from Josh Iwande to put that over. 17 points to 7. Highlanders back in front. They haven't really been behind. It's been tied up, but it hadn't been behind. Crusaders kicked the penalty to make it 17-10. Highlanders were just winning mad turnovers at the breakdown. Every time the Crusaders seem to be going through a few phases, the referee will blow the whistle or they'll just get turned over. So, yeah, and again, it's Dylan Hunt probably had his best game for the Highlanders this season, I thought. Crusaders were knocking on the door right before half-time. Goodhue had a line break, but they could only manage a penalty out of it because they went close but weren't able to get a try. I think they were held up and they went back for a penalty. So it finishes half-time. 17 points to 13. You're thinking 4 points up half-time, Highlanders, that's not enough. You need to be up by at least kind of 15 points on the Crusaders to withstand that counter, which you know is going to come in the second half, especially after the 60-minute mark, and we talked about that in the live stream as well. But the halftime stats anyway was possession 50-50, territory 50-50, run meters 293 to 237. That's in the Crusaders' favour, but relatively even. Tackling percentages 82% for the Crusaders, 88% for the Highlanders. The Highlanders made 74 in the first half. The Crusaders made 56. Knock-ons, the Crusaders had like 5-1. They knocked the ball on 5 times. So this is what I'm talking about the Crusaders giving you an opportunity. There's not that many games where they will knock the ball on 5 times as much as their opposition, but this was one of those games. So the turnovers conceded total was 10 by the Crusaders, that's your knock-ons and your actual turnovers at the breakdown, to 4 by the Highlanders. So that's a key area, because if you look at that, despite turning the ball over 10 times, they still managed 50% possession, and one of these tries is an intercept. Highlanders are actually doing all right to be in front, and that's a little bit ominous, I guess, on the stats. But anyway, it was still very, very good first half. Second half, Eno at 1 point, 44 minutes, looks like he's going to run away with a try for all money, because there's like a turnover at the breakdown, and he just seems to be the only man at the ruck. He just picks the ball up and runs. There's nobody near him. He's going to do a length of the field try of his own, but the referee calls it back for a penalty for the Crusaders, which seemed weird, because the Crusaders, if he'd been playing advantage, would have been up the field, but he said there was like kind of infringements on both sides, so he had to call it back for the first infringement, which was by the Highlanders. But he's going to get on the board later anyway. Dylan Hunt, by the way, prior to that had gone pretty close for the Highlanders as well. There's a line break from Mo'unga on 46 minutes, and he just always looks so dangerous. And he gets the ball to Bryn Hall, and it's... I don't mean to like kind of revel in another person's misery, but it's just so unexpected. It's a try. You'll notice Bryn Hall's name is not on here. Bryn Hall is in with a try for absolutely all money. The commentators are already calling it. I'm already getting ready to write my notes going, man, the Crusaders are just too good. Moonga just out of nowhere created that opportunity. Brent Hall gets to finish it off, but Josh McKay, whatever his surname is, I don't know what the correct pronunciation is. He comes out of nowhere. I'm not sure if Brent Hall didn't see him or if he just didn't think he'd get to him in time, but he shows a proper turn of speed. Comes from behind Brent Hall and, attacks the ball carrying arm. He's carrying the ball in one arm. Ball gets knocked loose and it's a knock on. So the Highlanders hanging on by the skin of their teeth. Proper good effort. I guess Brent Hall should have been carrying the ball in two hands. Maybe that's a lesson for young players. There's been loads of times you've seen this kind of stuff happen where guys, Burns for Bath last year was way worse than this one because he was like tapping the logo on his jersey and thanking the fans before he got it knocked out of his hands in the Champions Cup game. But yeah, pretty bad look. And Brent Hall gets substituted immediately. His last action of the game is to kind of blow a try. But again, credit to Mackay. It's not just Hall. So anyway, and then they're made to pay for it again. To make matters worse for the Crusaders, Collins goes in for a try after a Josh Iwane, and he had a really good game. Line break, they had advantage. They missed the conversion, which was a bit of a shanked kick to make it 13 points to 22. But that's where the scoring stops for the Highlanders. And when do the Crusaders often run away with the game? From about 60 minutes. So 54 minutes is their last score of the game. They almost have it on 59 minutes because they got a 5-meter line out, but this is attacking line out for the Crusaders, but they lose the ball. It doesn't matter though because George Bridge gets the first of 2 tries in 2 minutes. One of them because the Highlanders kicked the ball out on the full. It was like Moonga, I think Will Jordan all in the build-up, and Bridge goes over to finish it off. And then Bridge goes in again 2 minutes later. It's a Moonga line break. They missed the conversion. And the TMO has a check of Ollie Jaeger's health, I guess, because he's on the ground sprawled as the Moonga's getting ready for the conversion for the second try in 2 minutes. And Tompkinson's kind of hit him off the ball with no arms, and it looks pretty bad. Jaeger takes a good 5-10 minutes to go off. I hope he's alright. I haven't read anything about him yet, but it definitely took a long time for him to go off. So Tompkinson gets yellow carded. It's 2 tries in 2 minutes for the Crusaders, and it's pretty much looking like it's going to go according to that script, whereby the Crusaders, after the hour mark, just pile on the points. Aaron Smith, though, on 66 minutes, did go close from like a little kick through. He was about, if the in-goal area's maybe got another meter in it, maybe he gets a try. It was a bit of a 50-50 one, but yeah, maybe. And then Jesse Pardeti has a couple of knock-ons during the yellow card. The Highlanders actually managed the yellow card reasonably well, and I think the fact that they were standing around for a good, like I said, 5-10 minutes as Jaeger was being treated, which they should do, slowly and carefully, gave the Highlanders guys maybe a bit of a chance to breathe because they were looking pretty knackered. They've been making a lot more tackles than the Crusaders had to, so the gaps for those 2 tries were pretty bad. But still, the Crusaders put it beyond all doubt when Eno gets a try. There's a maul, it's 5 meters out. It can't get through, so they spin it to the backs, and eventually, I think it's Moonga to Eno. He goes in for the try. And 7 points scored during the yellow card. It's just before Tompkinson came back on. Converted try, and that makes it 32-22. Pretty much game over. 5 minutes to go. The Highlanders need to score twice. Wasn't going to happen. So, yeah. Good win from the Crusaders. Like I said, they weren't perfect. They had areas of their game that weren't that good, and yet they can still win by 10 points against a team absolutely slogging their guts out. So that's just how good the Crusaders are, man. Very, very good team. Still, that game next week will be one they want to focus on. I saw Braden Ennor interviewed after the game, and he's kind of like, whilst they're happy to get the trophy, they're still focused on a job to do next week, which is, again, a bit of a winning mindset for the team. So, yeah. Final stats, run meters 614 to 510, so not a huge difference in that. Position ended up 50-50. Territory 51-49 to the Crusaders, so pretty even. Turnovers conceded was 17 by the Crusaders, 9 to the Highlanders. So even despite that fact, 10-point win. Tackling percentage, Crusaders were at 80%, which is pretty low for the Super Rugby Aotearoa games. Have been generally like 85% is good. They made 105. The Highlanders made 130. Tackled at 82%, which was a bit down from that first half. But yeah, knock-ons 11-3, 11 by the Crusaders. So that's part of those turnovers conceded that I mentioned. So imagine if the Crusaders had better handling. Imagine if their breakdown work was a bit better. Could have been worse. But anyway, penalties conceded was pretty even, 12-11. And Mo'unga, Reese, and Jordan all had 80-plus run meters for the Crusaders. Very dangerous. Dylan Hunt, like I mentioned, I thought he had a pretty good game for the Landers. 16 tackles, which I think was the most in that game. 16 out of 18. So, yeah. Still 1 week to go. You do have to wonder about the format because it does make this set of games, next week's games, just for I don't know, for pride. But yeah, I guess the format did make this game extra special, so it's kind of hard to know which way I would have preferred. I know across the ditch they're talking about how the Aussie format of having the top team go through to the final and then the second and third team battle it out for another final spot. I don't know. Would have been nice for the Blues to get one crack at the Crusaders, but then if you'd had to go down to Christchurch to play the Crusaders, wouldn't be an easy task anyway. So, yeah, very good game, very entertaining. If you haven't seen it, like I mentioned, go watch the highlights. It was a top game. There's some top moments. They may not show all the ones that I mentioned, but they'll certainly show all the tries. And, yeah, congrats again to the Crusaders. We'll see you guys next week. But, yeah, you guys have any thoughts on the game? And I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.